Hello, my name is Nathan Stute from Whisper, and today we're going to be talking about Built to Lead. And I have two guests with me, and I'm going to have them kind of introduce themselves. So, Dario, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm Dario Mackins. I am the acquisition assistant here at Whisper. Been here for 14 years. Uh, Personally, about myself, I love sports, but I'm not really outdoorsy. I'm more of an indoor guy. So even though it's
And who,
starting to get nice weather, I'm still going to be staying inside.
staying inside to watch the sport. Now, who's your favorite team? You got a favorite team, or you like
Yeah.
all sports?
I like basketball and football, primarily football. Excuse me, New Orleans Saints.
Okay, all
Yep.
right, very good. Good Midwest team, right?
Yep.
South Midwest team,
Mhm.
perfect. JP, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is John Phillips. I go by JP here at Whisper. I've been with the company for the past 2.5 years, serving on our customer experience team. So if a customer's called in with a problem, I've probably helped them through it.
Awesome.
With that, I regularly spend time reading and puzzling with my wife.
Very good. Very good. And how did you get the nickname JP here? What was the reason for that?
You know what? Someone in HR just likes assigning names.
It just
We'll
stuck.
stick the first two letters together, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Okay. Well, we just hired 3 mics in like 1 week. So I think we're going to have to come up with nicknames for mics, because I met somebody that had a mask on. I didn't recognize them. I'm like, hey, are you Mike? And they're like, yes, I am. I'm like, perfect. Good. They're all named Mike. So, well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I know, Dario, you were on the last one with me, and you graciously agreed to come back and talk a little bit about this Built to Lead. And, you know, with everything we do, it's always, for me, it's you define success. And if you define your success, you will always be successful. I'm not saying go out and set the bar really low, but don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Just figure out what makes you successful in your mind and work towards those goals. So if you take nothing away from this little chat we're having, please think about what really is success to you and what do you need to do. So today we're going to be talking about Built to Lead, and we've done a couple segments on Built to Lead, but we're going to shift today a little bit. And today it's really all about you, and what we mean by that, and that all about you is that it doesn't matter how bad I want you to go through Built to Lead, and how bad I want to grow myself and want all of our employees to grow. Really, it's up to you to make that decision, and that's why we have some guests on. Dario and JP have been through the first Built to Lead, building your core that we have, and I'm going to have them answer some questions and just talk about their experience and what they were kind of thinking. This is a blog for Built to Lead. Built to Lead is not something we have. It's not our company, but we just firmly believe in it. Chet Scott, you can see here, he just wrote a book. It just came out. Thank you, Chet, for putting it on Audible so I can actually listen to it, because I listen to all my books. It's the first thing I ask any author. So you can check out that book. I think it's really, really good and something worth looking into. So a little bit just to kind of set the groundwork for those that don't understand what Built to Lead is and why we do what we do. So we all have a physical core, right? So this is the core that holds our body up. Without it, we wouldn't be able to stand or walk around. If it's part of it isn't working very well, you know, we have to favor that side or do special things to work with it. So the core that we have is what makes us who we are and allows us to be that optimal athlete. Apparently, if you're working for the Saints, right? You know, for Dario, you can be a good athlete on that team. And it's so important to have that physical core. But when we talk about Built to Lead, we're talking about a virtual core and building who you are. Who is that person? And there's many components to this virtual core. And we're going to talk about these first 3 here, this worldview. What do you believe? What is your view of the world? It isn't right or wrong, and it's going to be different than everybody else's, and that's totally okay. But what do you believe? And then your identity. Who are you? What makes you kind of you? And the identity feeds from the worldview. And then the next one is your principles. What's right or wrong? I will, I won't. And this is all part of the exercise we go through that we're going to talk about today, is kind of our journey through working with that. The next one is passions. What do you love to do? What do I love to do this, or I love to do that. And then what is your purpose? And then finally, what's the process to get there? And today we're going to talk about these first three: world view, identity, and principles, because really that's the foundation for what we're trying to do. And when I said today was all about you, I really mean it. It's all about you. And are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to really ask yourself those tough questions? And it can be scary. I sought out our executive coach that we use to do Built to Lead. I was looking to drive myself to be better, but not everybody's like that. And a lot of people are like, oh, like, I don't know that I like what I see, or I don't know that, are they going to ask me all these weird questions or whatnot? And so it can be scary. So I want to see, Dario, I'm gonna put the first question to you, kind of like, so when you heard me talk about this, right, which you've been here for 14 years, this is not the first time I've come in with a, hey, we're going to do this in the company. It's going to be awesome. You know, I love doing this. I want to build into you and make you better. But you know, what's kind of going through your head before you got into the class, before you did that? What were your kind of thoughts on Built to Lead and what we were trying to do?
I mean, I was definitely skeptical on it, mainly because it was going to be a group session. And kind of the first thing that popped into my head was it was going to be another one of these, not that we've done this here at Whisper, but you see these kind of take this program and it's going to magically transform you into this, you know, great leader or person within 2 weeks. So you take the program within 2 weeks.
You can tell the truth, Dario. We may or may not have done a couple of those here, right? I mean, you can tell the truth here, right?
So, you know, that was kind of one of the first things that just kind of popped in my head was going to be one of those kind of seminars where there's going to be this guy up here and he gives examples. And if you just do exactly what I teach you, and you're going to become the next, you know, great leader of this country, if you just follow these steps. And then what made me feel like, oh, this might be exactly that type is the questionnaire that came out prior into going into the sessions was, and there was it was almost 80 questions you had to answer. Yeah. And they were pretty deep, you know, they were, so you want to answer them honestly, right? Because honestly answering these things is going to be how you get the greatest benefit from it. But then you start to think, wait a minute, I'm going to have to share my answers and responses with, you know, everyone in the group. So, you know, just definitely skeptical going into it.
Yeah, and then, you know, you're talking about a group, and it's not even a group of our employees. I opened it up to the whole universe. Anybody who wanted to be in it. So you're like, I don't even know these people, and I'm sharing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Half the people I saw, it was virtual. Half the people I saw on the screen was coworkers, so people that I didn't know, and then half the people were like, who is this, and where did they come from? Like, so. Right. Yeah. So sharing that information with strangers too. So the first session was everybody was kind of, I don't know, but then it really got moving, and that's when things really took off.
Okay. Yeah. We'll get back to that part of taking off and see where it is. So JP, what were some of your thoughts when you were going into this?
So I remember when we had David Deck come in and talk to the entire company when you were first going through your Built to Lead experience. This was back in the beginning of 2020, I think, at our State of the Company address. And everyone just got so excited to hear about how can I develop who I am? How can I discover more about me? There was definitely some overall skepticism from certain members. On my part, I was ready to go for it. I went through the Way to Whisper, and I found it to be an incredibly valuable experience diving into the DISC to learn about myself and others. And I was really looking forward to seeing what and when we could get into doing a deep dive into who am I and how do I work. Those types of identity concepts.
Right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, you're right. We kind of, you know, David Deck shared his story. I kind of shared my story going through it. And, you know, as crazy as I am about a lot of this stuff, I never ask you guys to do something I'm not willing to do first and kind of vet it out. So you go to your first class. It's kind of, wow, what is this? I'm not quite sure. At what point did you kind of realize it? It sounds like JP, you were gung ho about it, and Dario a little bit more skeptical. But at what point did you kind of realize, like, holy cow, this is like it's a different how-to, if you will. Did you guys have any revelations on that?
With me, I mean, it was probably midway through the second session.
Okay.
And that's when, we had already started framing up like our identity and what was our worldview. So that was like our first assignment, was to come up with, what is your worldview? Start building that core. What's your worldview? What's your identity? Some of those principles. And like midway through the second class, or the second session, obviously the group, we had seen everyone there the previous session. So it was like, okay, you're familiar with the faces now. People were starting to open up more and be more comfortable with sharing their information. So, and it was at that point too that you realized this was not really about, building you to be this great leader. It was about building yourself, getting to know yourself, finding out who you are, why are you who you are, being accepting of who you are. And, it's not some great transformation. It's just learning yourself and being accepting of yourself. So once I figured out that's where we were going with this, it was like, okay, I can definitely get on board with this, because I believe that people should be able to be who they are without judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you come to a realization of who you are, you kind of have to have a base to then, if you want to make yourself better, right? If you don't know who you are, then what are you working on? So JP, you've always impressed me, because you're a reader like I am, and you come up with all these great quotes and things that you're reading and trying to self-improve. How is this maybe different than some of the other things that you've kind of been through or saw with your love for learning and what you're doing and self-improvement? Was there anything different with this, or the approach was a little bit different for you?
Sure. So one of the things that I guess stuck out for me very early on was one of the exercises that Rachel, the builder who leads my session, walked us through. And she had us grab our computers and actually get down on the ground and go into an exercise position and hold it for a minute and a half while she continued to teach.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, this is getting painful, and we're on the floor, and I have no idea why you're having us do this.
Right.
Once we got to the end of it, she said, all right, you're feeling the burn now. What we're doing, you're experiencing acute pain instead of dealing with chronic pain.
Okay.
You have a choice. You will deal with pain in this life. The number one pain that people experience is back pain, chronic back pain. If you instead put in the work to develop your core, you will go through an acute pain while you're building all those muscles. The same concept applies as we're going through this Built to Lead journey. You will experience acute pain as you work through, do I actually believe that which I have laid out and said? These are my I believe statements, my I am statements. You write them down, you sit on them for a little bit, and then you turn away and you look back and you're like, I know I said I believe that, but that hurts.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can still actually stand by what I said there, because it's not quite true. This is how it actually is true for me.
Right. I think you bring up, so that's a cool exercise to put some physical into it and see. You bring up interesting, because when I was working on my core, my worldview, I had written down several things that I believed. At least I thought I believed, right? And when you write them down on paper and you read them over, and then you go out into the real world and your actions don't back that up, it's like, oh, clearly I don't really believe that. And maybe it's aspirational, or maybe it's that I just clearly don't believe that. I just thought I did. And when you really, really start to work on it and put the work in, it's interesting. So let's look at this, the worldview. So your deepest held beliefs serves as an internal matrix thought, or through which you interpret the meaning of life and try to make sense of it. So it's not that you're right or wrong. It's that we have different beliefs, and what are, kind of, those are what set your kind of this motion of what we're going to working on with our core. So do you guys have any that you want to share? Not all of them by any means, because there should be a long list as you guys have been working on this, but any of them that kind of jump out to you that maybe as you were working with the group that are different? I've got a couple here that I'll share, but any ones you want to share, and if you got any stories of how you kind of came across those or what you were doing?
I mean, I could share my my most simplest one that I had.
Okay.
For my worldview was that I have life is easy, and it's the people that make it hard.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and what brought me to that was just pretty much like, I think I'm a pretty easy, laid back going person myself. I've been told that from a lot of people that meet me that, you're pretty laid back, chill, and I'm not really bothered by anything. So, but usually anytime I found myself like upset, or it's usually because someone else has brought their problems to me, or just society just has lost its mind. And it's just, things could be a lot simpler if, you just didn't have people making the chaos that exists in the world. So I was like, life is simple. It's just the people that you deal with that make it hard at times.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. JP, what about you?
I had a couple here. One was that I believe that your ceiling is determined more by your attitude and hard work than by your background or your genetics.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's a good one.
And then also, I believe in taking responsibility for that which is under my care, even when the outcome is bad.
Okay. And how let's take that one. I believe in taking responsibility, even when the outcome is bad. How does that help you have it written down? I mean, how does that help you? We're going through this whole process, but what does that really do? I mean, okay, you believe that, but what does that do for you?
Sure. So, I have people reporting to me, and I report to a boss. My boss comes to me with a situation that something went south. The buck stops with me.
Mm-hmm.
It is my responsibility for those who are under my care. I will absolutely address them, but I'm taking responsibility for the problem, and we'll get it solved. Talking to that customer, I am so sorry you went through this experience, but we are going to get that fixed for you, whatever that solve looks like. If someone calls into customer support, normally it's because something has not gone perfectly right.
Yes, unfortunately. We have a couple that like to call us just to call us, right? They need somebody to talk to, but you are correct, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And because of that, we need to take responsibility for what has happened, even though the person answering that phone likely was not the cause of whatever problem might have occurred.
Right.
Some things are completely outside of our control. We still need to claim it and move forward with it.
Right.
With this as a mindset, I'm able to, there's no question in my mind. Yes, I'm taking responsibility, and we'll do whatever I need to do in order to help fix this problem.
Right. Right. That's great. And Dario, if we step back to yours, so when you're frustrated by the world or frustrated by people, do you think back to what you had written down in your worldview? Does it calm you down, or are you still, hot for a little while and then you calm down?
Oh no, it calms me down like almost instantly.
Okay.
So it's you can turn it off. Once you understand it and you realize it, you now have an off switch for it, right?
Okay.
Because you realize what it is. You understand what that trigger is. So if I know what the trigger is, then I can easily now hit the off button on it.
No, I think that's a great, it's a great visualization, right? Because we all make our own choices, right? If somebody, in fact, I was just on a call this morning, and we were talking about, I'm so offended by what somebody said. Well, that's your choice. Your choice is to be offended. If you know who you are as a core, if somebody calls me, I have dyslexia, I spell at a third grader level, read at a 6. And one of my worldviews is I believe my dyslexia is my greatest strength. That's what I believe. I put it in writing, and I will tell every kid that has dyslexia, just make it through school, because when you get into the real world, you're going to do great. And if somebody comes to me and says, oh, I can't believe you can't read, that's retarded, you're so stupid, doesn't bother me. I'm sad you think that, but that doesn't change my view that I think my dyslexia is my greatest strength. So, but having it in writing is something to go back to. And I love that off switch, right? That you can, I can switch and say, no, this is where I am. I recognize it and do that. No,
because it's usually not the action that gets punished, it's the reaction. So
yeah.
That's usually how it happens, even in sports. It's not the guy who shoved the guy, first. It's the guy who retaliates that gets the penalty flag called on him. Right. So if someone says something negative to you, you can choose to ignore it or just hit the off switch on it, or you can choose to react, and usually it's your reaction that's going to draw that penalty.
Right. Yeah. The story I love with that is that, if you're driving down a dark road and you're in a bad part of town and somebody cuts you off, what do? Well, you don't flick your lights at them. You don't put your finger out the window and do whatever. You're in a bad part of town. You just kind of keep going. Well, now you take yourself and put yourself in a good part of town and it's sunny or whatever, and somebody cuts you off. Well, he cut me off. I had to flick him off. I had to give him a piece of my mind. No, you didn't. You really didn't. You chose, right? You made that decision.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, let's go on to the next one then. So the next one we have is identity. So your view of yourself, your identity flows from your worldview. So we're going from worldview, and now we're into your identity. These are I am statements. So share some of your favorite I am statements that you guys came up with.
I mean, I can shoot first on this one too.
Sure.
Our facilitator he really pressed me on this one and questioned me about my answer to this. And I'll just read it verbatim, actually. I said, my identity has not yet been created. Just like others, I am only allowed to select from the categories society has predetermined. Therefore, I am select all that apply and other.
Okay. Yeah. So unpack that for me. What's he pressured you on it and made you talk. So unpack that a little bit for us. What does that mean to you?
So for me, it was like usually growing up, you're told to be yourself, right? Be an individual. You get chastised if you do something that your sibling does, or if you do something your friend does. If they make a decision and you try to use the excuse of, well, they did it. My mom would say what every other mom would say. Well, if they jumped off of a bridge, would you jump off of a bridge?
Yes.
So if they ran off in front of a bus, would you run out in front of a bus? So be yourself, be an individual, be unique is what you're taught as a child. Be yourself. And then you grow up and you become an adult. And as soon as you're not like everyone else, people tell you you're not normal or you're weird. Why can't you just be like everyone else? Right. And then you start to think of, well, who is everyone else? Well, everyone else is this checkbox, right? I'm a male, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm this race, I fall in this weight category, you have to select these boxes, and based upon those boxes is who society tells you must be, because they've ran the metrics and they've decided that based on all of your selections, this is who you are. And if you are not that, then now they're like, wait a minute, you're abnormal. You're not like the 95% of people who fall within these categories of those boxes. So I feel like, to be a true individual, your identity has not been set. Only you know your identity. No one else does.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. JP, that was a pretty heavy one that he laid on us. You don't have to go that heavy. What do you got?
I'm going to be pondering that one for a while, Derek.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, check all of the above. Yes.
All right. Mine, this one I picked out here, we specifically talked about and pulled out in one of our sessions. And part of my role here at Whisper is I'm a trainer. And Anybody who comes through the customer service wing gets to spend some time with me as we go through all the various things that we have to teach them. As a trainer and teacher, this worldview statement is I am not in control of if the listener comes away with anything from my training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they will only get what they put in.
Right. Right. Absolutely. It's all about you, huh?
I can only control that which I physically can control. I cannot shove information into someone's head and make it stay.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's good. That's really, really good. I have one that I actually changed. So I'll share the first one I had and then what I changed it to. So I am willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't mean that. They meant it this way. You know, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. And what I found was, though, is that I don't just blanket give a benefit of the doubt. After I had this written down for a while, I kept reviewing it and it kept nudging at me. I wasn't sure what it was. So I actually had to go back and add and said, in the small things. So I will give people the benefit of the doubt in the small things that ultimately the outcome doesn't really affect me. Kind of like Dario was like, I'm laid back. It's okay. But it was only in the small thing when I give benefit of doubt, because I'm very skeptical on the big things, right? If like something doesn't feel right or seem right, and that's where my identity that I had wasn't written down. And your identity is never finished, right? So that's kind of like what Dario was talking about, you know, but you're always working on it. And that was something that I went back and worked on, and was able to edit what I had over time. So
and I like that part of it too, where you did realize it. So you wrote it down. And you said, you know what, I'm gonna give people the benefit of the doubt. But then, you did realize too, well, hold on, there's some major things that have happened where I did not give benefit of the doubt, and I knew they were doing exactly what they intended. So, yeah.
And it's self-realization, right? And I'm not a big writer because I don't spell very well, and you can't read my handwriting. But there is power in writing it down and having it to review and reviewing it and looking at it and saying, wow, this is really kind of who I am. And this is what I want to be. Awesome. So let's go on to this last one. So the last section that we're going to talk about today is principles, your strongest values that guide you in how you live and work. So I will, and I won't. I actually really like this one, because for me, when I wrote down the principles, then when I didn't live up to my principle or I needed to make a decision, it was like, no, I wrote it down. There's no like in my mind going back and forth and trying to justify bending a little bit or whatever. It's like, I either believe this or I don't, and I will or I won't. And I was able to come back to my core, and decisions were just very, very quick, some very hard decisions, because I had written them down. I like probably this section is one of my favorite sections that we have in all of the course. So JP, do you have one that you want to share, or a couple you want to share?
Sure. I got a couple here. Okay. I will accept that my personal success and fulfillment is determined not by if the other person responds the right way, but by whether I gave my best work.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And then also, I will make my work today better than it was yesterday, because I'm making myself a better person today than I was yesterday. Yeah, no, that's a good one. I love that. And, we always kind of joke at Whisper that Whisper is going to continue to grow. And if you don't grow with us, I'm sorry, we're just going to continue to grow. And I know not all companies are growing, but you as a person, no matter where you are, even if you're retired, you can still be growing as a person and working that side. I think that's a great one. Dario, what about you?
For my principle, I will allow anyone to be who they are without attempting to press upon them my life's principles.
Okay. So, I like that.
Yep. And it just kind of goes back to my worldview that life is easy. It's the people that make it hard. Usually what I found is that people love giving advice. People love giving other people advice and making judgment on other people. Sometimes they'll give you advice that they themselves will not take. So, if I was you, I would do this. No, you've been in my situation and you didn't do that. Right. So, and they'll judge you upon things too, that it's like they've been through similar situations and they did not conquer it in the fashion that they claim that they would have. So is I will allow people to come to me, talk to me, and I will not judge you, and I will not press upon my life's principles in a way to try to alter your way of life. I will accept you for who you are and try to help you. If I can't help you, I won't hurt you, was another one of my life's principles.
Okay. That's a good one. I love doing experience shares, kind of like what we're doing today. What did you go through? How was it for you? And they can, like JP, like you said, they will only take what they want to take out of it. And I've always been a big one that I love advice. I love advice from people, and people are like, wait a minute, how do you love advice? It's like, because I know I don't have to take your advice, right? Tell me all you want. Tell me, I love learning from other people's mistakes, and tell me all these things. But wait a minute, I know in my own mind that I don't even have all the answers, and I don't even know like the full picture, right? How in 5 minutes can I tell you my situation and have you know exactly what I should do? Right? You have no idea, mostly because I couldn't articulate what I'm really going through, or maybe I don't know what the real root cause of the problem is. So I've always been a big one, and I didn't realize why I was so secure with taking a lot of advice from people. But it was because of a strong core. Because if you have a strong core and know who you are, I'll take your advice and I'll cherry pick the best little thing off of it, and I'll do that instead of doing all the other garbage. Like, no, I'm not going to bend the truth, or no, I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. So no, that's good. I think one of mine that I have is I will always remember that my success is really God's success. So it's that I'm yes, on earth I look like I'm being very successful, but really it's because that's what God's blessed me with to be able to do that. And it helps keep me humble. And no matter how big Whisper gets, and no matter how many articles are written about what we're doing, it's like, no. This is all his success. I just get to be the one on earth that gets to do it. So it's definitely neat when you write them down. Another one I have is I will not. So this is I will not forget growing leaders may mean that someday they leave me and lead others. Because it's I know a lot of small business owners, they're like, oh, how much do I have to pay to train these people? And what do I do? And what if they leave? And it's like, ooh, what if you don't train them and they stay? I mean, that's even worse for me. But I'm very at peace that if somebody has to leave our team, hopefully it's sad when anybody has to leave. I want all of our employees to work for us forever. But hey, mom's sick and I got to move back to California, or hey, my wife got another job and I got to go where she's going. I would want them to leave us better than what they came in and be that amazing leader. And I want nothing more than, in 20 years from now to be like, oh, you work for Whisper, you're hired, right? Or you went through there, you took a time at Whisper. Just because of our reputation of producing quality employees, not even just saying that we're leaders. We're all leaders no matter what position we're in. So yeah, that's great. So any closing thoughts from the two of you? Anything to kind of wrap up your experience, what you went through? Would you recommend it to others? Would you not? What are you guys thinking?
Definitely would recommend it. We went through our session and we came to the end of our session with our moderator. So what our group did after the fact, we enjoyed it so much that we got the gang back together and we're all doing our own. It's a group session with all of us that went through Built to Lead together, and we're rotating out weekly who's moderating it and who's leading. So we always bring a topic.
Nice.
And then we do discussions around it. And I think about 70% of the people we had in our group is continued on with this as we do these sessions. So yes.
That's awesome. JP, what about you?
I would absolutely recommend it, but I would only recommend it for those who are willing to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful experience, an absolutely wonderful learning and growing time. It's painful. It's difficult. You emerge so much better.
Mm-hmm.
The acute pain is very real. But you grow so much through the process. You grow in trust for those around you, as well as you grow in understanding of who you are and where you really stand.
Yep. No, that's great. That's great. Had any of you, your spouses, said anything about you going through the class at all? Anything you want to share? I know we're live on the interwebs, right? So I know my wife. She had a question for me, and she said that she goes, I just want you to tell me what to do. Don't ask me your 10,000 questions, because that's what I always do. I'm always asking her questions about all the stuff as we've gone through this. And I said, okay, but can I ask you one question? And I had to ask her a question. And then she answered her own question, and she did an amazing job of working through the problem. But anything your spouses have seen?
I will say with mine is, I guess it's her way of saying she knows me better than I know myself. So, when I'm kind of sharing things with her, she's just kind of like, I already knew that, you know? So, yeah. So it took you this long to figure that out about yourself. So, well, thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that came from talking about this, because I regularly debrief with my wife after work, whether it's for Built to Lead or anything else, we regularly debrief. One of the identity statements coming out of it was, I get energy from sharing what I've learned with others. She already knew that. I'm regularly running my mouth at home, super sharing about anything that I've been excited about, whether it's been what I've been reading, what I came across online, what I did at work, whatever. I'm just running my mouth, sharing, because I think through speaking.
Okay.
In order to fully process what's happened, it kind of has to come out my mouth. And then I'm like, no, that's not really what I mean or what I believe. It's actually. And so I talk through it. And she's like, yeah, you've been doing that our entire marriage. I'm like, oh.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's good. That's good. Well, thanks for that bonus question. I put you guys on the spot there for that. So to kind of wrap everything up, you can join our Facebook page, watch us here. We have a YouTube page as well. These are some of the books I love on leadership and entrepreneurship. Check out these. They're all really, really good books. I just went back and re-listened to the Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Amazing book. He articulated everything I want in a company and explained why I am willing to do Built to Lead in the company, and why it's more about helping everybody than it is about winning. And he just put everything into just such a great way to have a common language on it. So I recommend you read these books. Tune in next time for part 2 when we talk about Built to Lead, the next 3 sections of your core. And we thank you so much for being here. And thanks, guys, for being on. It was great having you. And thanks for your insights.
All right.
It's a pleasure.